Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So it's been a little while, but I'm glad to be back here on the channel. I miss putting together these videos and our conversations when I have to step away for a little while for life stuff. This time it was work travel. I've been up in Pittsburgh for a little while, and I'm actually getting ready to travel again next month. But this time to Savannah, Georgia, which I'm actually kind of excited about because I've never been there. But in the meantime, we've got fun, nostalgic stuff to talk about. And today that means viewer mail, along with recent pickups. A good friend of the channel, Joe, sent down another box, so we'll open that up together and see what we've got. We've actually got more viewer mail coming later this week. So once that gets here, I'll be opening that up with you guys probably in the next video. And then I figured we could just catch up a little bit. Head over to the Ottoman and take a look at some recent vintage and retro pickups and talk about the memories that go along with each one. And of course, we'll do the cassette of the day, as always. So just fun, nostalgic stuff all around today. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman here in the den for our next installment in the cassette of the day. For the first time in probably, 11 or 12 days at this point, I think. But I just went into the VHS closet and grabbed out a random tape, just whichever one caught my eye. And this time around that happened to be a cartoon on VHS. A kind of random and obscure cartoon from what I can remember. And that is the Potato Head Kids. Now I did a quick little online look up research on this, just real briefly before the video today. And this was a short-lived, I think 23 episodes or so. Apparently it ran in the late 80s, like even 89 and into 90. And that may have been like the second time around because this tape is dated 1987. And I remember this being earlier. I would have thought 1986, 1987, that would sound about right for when I saw this, and remembered seeing this cartoon a couple of times. Apparently it ran like 15-minute episodes, and they ran it in conjunction with other shows. So like they would show an episode of My Little Pony and Friends for 15 minutes, and then the other 15 minutes would be Potato Head Kids. And they did the same thing, I think, with Glow Friends and even Moon Dreamers, if anyone remembers those. But just, a fun, like, throwback to a very simple cartoon. And thinking back about it now, when I did the video on like the aged down versions of some of our favorite cartoon characters. I did I talked about Muppet Babies and A Pup Named Scooby-Doo and the Flintstone Kids and Pink Panther and Sons and all those types of cartoons that they did back then. This probably could have counted, right? Because aren't these Spuds related to Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head? I don't know that for sure, but I would imagine that's the case. And we've got another great one from FHE here. That logo seems to show up a lot on the cassette of the day. But yeah, this one is for Surfin' Potatoes. I don't even remember where I found this, but I didn't know that it existed. And it's one of those things, you see it and you're like, okay, I have to take that home because I didn't know it existed and I had completely forgotten about the cartoon and the toys. So glad to have it in the collection, as obscure and random as it is. Hopefully it jogged a memory or two for some of you taking a look at it again today. Yeah, Potato Head Kids for today's cassette of the day. And before we get into some of my recent vintage and retro pickups, we've got viewer mail. Again, coming to us from good friend of the channel, Joe. We've got this big box here, this chicken egg rolls box. And there's some weight to this. And I have an idea of some of the things that are in here, just from going back and forth with Joe on email. But yeah, there's quite a bit of heft to this box. So Joe, I really do wish you'd let me just reimburse you for the shipping on that, for this generous package that we've got here. But yeah, let's get it opened up and see what we've got. Okay, I've got it opened up. Well packaged, as always. Let's take a look. See what kind of fun treasures we have in here. All right, so right off the bat, I see some awesome Batman goodness here. Glow in the dark. I love it anytime they do a glow in the dark feature on a toy. I just do. Oh, that's so cool. What a cool looking figure. Lunar Attack. And this looks like it's based on the animated series that I love. You guys know that I think that's probably one of the best adaptations of Batman ever. Even better than most of the movies, honestly. And one of the best, superhero cartoons of all time. Watch Batman Beyond on Kids WB. Okay, so 2001. So is this based on Batman Beyond? Also a really cool show. I haven't watched it as much, but he's one of the best comic book characters ever created, right? I mean, he's definitely up there for me. Like as a whole, I generally prefer Marvel, but when we're talking about DC, it doesn't get any better than Batman. So really excited to have this, and I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So thanks so much. Okay, I'm already seeing so much cool stuff right here on the top. Let's kind of go with the VHS tapes that I'm seeing. Let's start with a couple of those. We are the cassette phase after all. Oh, check this out. We've got Michael J. Fox in Poison Ivy. How cool. I've never actually seen this movie, but it looks like it's from, I've heard of it. And it looks like it's from a great era. Don't know anything about it. Oh, wow. This looks right up my alley, though. Yeah, anything, if you're giving us Michael J. Fox at this time, now this was 1984, looks like. So this is pre Back to the Future, but I think during Family Ties, so he was already a pretty big star. I always like when we see that Good Times logo on VHS tapes. That's just so cool. Yeah, that one's gonna get watched. That's gonna get moved to the top of the list for movies that I want to watch. I'm excited for that one. All right, so sticking with VHS tapes here, we've got C. Thomas Howell in Kid. Another one that I'm not familiar with, but it just looks so epic. And Joe is really good about paying close attention to the VHS closet, when I'm in there rearranging. And I guess making a mental note of tapes that I don't have and movies that I haven't seen, and sending things my way. So looks like a cool action flick here. So excited for this one. I'm gonna be set for movie nights on the old console TV. Some new movies to watch, so thanks again. Now, as I'm taking things off the top layer, I keep seeing really cool things that I'm excited about. The next one being, oh wow, this is amazing. We've got a 1991 NBA World Champions Chicago Bulls Cup. Now, the last video that I did, which, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now at this point, I talked about basketball and the memories that I have of playing basketball. And I even took you out to the court and did some shooting around. And I talked about how big a Bulls fan I was growing up. Oh, this is so cool. There's just no stopping a herd of charging bulls. Yeah, this was prime time Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls. You know, everybody was all about this team back then. Yeah, apparently Joe was a good basketball player himself, so he shared some memories with me about the basketball and all of that. So this is really cool. I'm excited. I'm going to figure out where exactly I want to display that. Now, anyone who's been with the channel a little while knows that I really do take the, what's the saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure. That resonates with me because, as you know, I like to collect things that might be considered, you know, disposable trash from another era. So things like soda cans and old like restaurant supplies and things like that. And so when I see things like this in a box, I just get super excited. Who doesn't remember the 90s paper cup design? There's something else in here as well. Let's see what we got. And we've got a Garfield Dixie cup. Also very cool. Yeah, I actually have a Flintstones Meet the Jetsons Dixie cup dispenser that still has the cups with it and the label and everything. I had it on a shelf here in the den for a while, but when I kind of did my little streamline clearing out, I actually put that in the bathroom. So, you know, I don't know how my wife feels about it, but in our master bathroom, there is a Dixie cup dispenser sitting on the sink with you know, Flintstones and Jetsons Dixie cups similar to this. You know, because that's what you would do back in the day. You'd have your toothbrush and this, you know, you'd have a stack of these next to the sink so you could rinse out. And then these, I'm thinking like, anytime you were in an office building or, I don't know, just any public place that had like a, one of those water, the big water jug, you know, turned upside down on top of a dispenser so you could grab a cup. There's usually like a stack of cups there that you could, you know, put and get yourself a little drink of water. That's what this makes me think of. And that design is just so classic. These colors. And what's funny about that is I'm actually going to talk about these colors, this teal and the purple from the late 80s, early 90s aesthetic for another item that I'm going to share in today's video. So very, very cool on these cups. Love them. All right, so sticking with the food and kitchen supply products and the like, here we've got some sandwich bags, but they're Looney Tunes sandwich bags. 25 of them. Two great designs. I mean, honestly, how cool is that? I love stuff like this. Fun for kids designs. 1992, right in the heart of the Looney Tunes resurgence, the Looney Tunes craze of the early 90s. I've told you guys before, they were everywhere. And I would have been 11 years old at the time, so there's a good chance that I might have had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of a bag just like this, or one similar. So super pumped to have this in the collection. Now guys, this box just keeps on going. I don't even know what to grab next. Let's go with this. So here we've got, oh wow, a Wheaties Frisbee. So cool. And this thing's in great shape too for being 1983 World Junior Frisbee Disc Contest Collectors Series. Oh, that's amazing. I have an old McDonald's Frisbee hanging on the wall, and it's not nearly in as good a shape as this. I'm gonna have to find a place for this one as well because, as I've talked about, I love, you know, food product promos and the random giveaways and mail-aways that you could get from food products back in the day, and this is just really, really cool. This almost looks like it might glow in the dark. I don't know. I may have to test it out sometime, but I'm not going to be taking this out and throwing it around with my son in front of the house and getting it all scuffed up. This is going to be hanging on a wall somewhere here, either in the den, the VHS closet, or maybe even out in the garage. Next up, we've got a Ziploc baggie here full of goodies. Oh my goodness, let's see what we've got here. I'm already seeing some cool stuff. Like, didn't I just feature a commercial for these little Mickey Roadsters? Pretty sure I did. Oh wow. I see a Snuffleupagus in there. Looks like it may be an Easter bunny. Oh my gosh, that's a Ninja Turtle. And I'm gonna open all this up, obviously, off camera and sort through all this stuff, but I already see about a dozen really cool things in that bag. So let's keep it moving. What do we have here? 25 decorative balloons, high quality helium grade. So again, Joe knows that I just like old groceries, you know, old products from another era. There's just something nostalgic, and look, it's from Texas. Just something so nostalgic about the mundane, you know, just random, everyday, ordinary things that you would see on the grocery store shelves or the drugstore shelves back in the 80s and the 90s. And just seeing, you know, the packaging again just immediately takes me back. So again, love stuff like that. All right, so just looking here, we've got another baggie with some cool toys in it. Show you guys that really quick. There's Woodstock. We got Yoshi. All kinds of fun stuff. Scooby-Doo. Oh yeah. You know, this is the kind of stuff that I've shown you guys, the toy bin that I have in the VHS closet that I like to just dig through. I go in there almost every morning and just open the lid, dig through there, and pull out a random toy like this. Was that Monterey Jack? Oh, it is, from Rescue Rangers. I'll just pull a random thing out, and that's what I'll keep at my desk all day long while I'm working, and I'll just sit there and fidget with it. So these will be new, these will be welcome additions to that bin for sure. Let's see, next thing. Oh wow, this has stuff attached to it. What do we have here? Why does this look familiar? Oh my goodness. Why does this look familiar? All right, let's find out together what this does. Maybe I should turn it around. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. It's Oscar, and there he goes. You know, this, oh wow, I'm having one of those memory unlocked moments. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm thinking daycare, or maybe there was a babysitter that I used to stay with in the summers that had like a whole toy room, and there were all kinds of stuff like this. Toys just like this, maybe even this exact one, because this definitely looks familiar. So cool. Anything vintage Sesame Street, right up my alley. All right, so the next thing I see in here is a DVD set for a show called Soap. Now, I was not familiar with this, and I think, if I remember correctly in the email, Joe wanted to send this to me because I was talking about how much I enjoyed Who's the Boss, and we were talking about Mona from Who's the Boss, and she's in this show. And apparently this is going to be right up my alley, so I've got season 1 here now, and that's great because I don't even know if this is streaming somewhere. I'm sure it probably is, but I won't have to hunt it down now because I can just watch the DVDs. Plus, I can watch them on the console TV, which is always a bonus. Let's see. A couple more. Let's see, we've got another VHS tape here. Oh, this is a cool movie, and I did not have this one. Small Soldiers. fun movie there. You know what? This would probably be a good one to watch with my son. He would probably like Small Soldiers. Let's see. Looks like more DVDs here. Oh, you can't go wrong with old He-Man and his adventures in Eternia with the Masters of the Universe. We've got 20 episodes here. I love having cartoons like this on in the background while I'm working, so that'll definitely get some use. What do we have here? Bear with me as I dig. Okay, so these are just like some random little foam cutouts, but they're from the Baby Looney Tunes show. Remember that? Not Tiny Toons, so not Tiny Toon Adventures, but Baby Looney Tunes. And we were just talking about the aged down versions of cartoons and how I think that's a cool phenomenon from back then. I don't know what these are for. Maybe I don't know, did they go to a puzzle or something? Either way, I'll put them in the bin of fun in the VHS closet and have them to fidget with. Oh, cool. So I got a big button pin back here for E.T., which is awesome. My favorite movie of all time. That's actually really cool. And I had some buttons and things that I didn't know what I wanted to do with. I found some place to put them. I've got a banner hanging out in the garage. It's actually a Grateful Dead banner because I'm a big fan of the Grateful Dead. But it has a lot of blank space on it. And I've been putting these types of things and attaching them. And it looks really cool out there. So that's where my new ET button will be going shortly. Now this I am really excited about. I've loved everything in here, but this is just too cool. We've got the novelization of The Last Starfighter. And people may be like, why do you need a novelization of a movie you could just watch? But I don't know, it's fun. Like, I'll read through the one for E.T. Or Gremlins from time to time, and it's just kind of cool to see the story told in a different way, you know? It kind of changes things a little bit. I've done it with some of the Star Wars movies. And they're quick, easy reads. You don't have to you can skim sections of it, you know. It's not like, it's not literature that you have to hang on every word. You know these stories for the most part, but like I said, it's fun to kind of go through the novelization version of some of your favorite movies. And I just love the cover art and kind of the worn vibe of that. That is just too cool. Let's see, what do we have next? Okay, we've got, looks like a Hot Wheels skateboard here. These are fun to fidget with. My son has a couple of these, and he actually has some of the ramps too. So we'll get these out and play with them from time to time. So we'll have a new one to add. What do we have here? We've got a stack of some things. So now these are either comic books or comic book ads, or a combination of the two. Oh wow. The Gargoyle issue #1. And I haven't looked what's behind here, so I don't want to spoil it, but this just looks so cool. Look at that typeface, font artwork. Just the artwork in general. I'll have to do a little bit of research, but was this comic series, this mini series here, did it influence, or was it the source material for the Disney cartoon that came on in the 90s? I'll be interested to see. I bet at the very least it was influenced by this. Very, very cool. Let's see what else we got. Oh, okay, so we've got #2. I may have my next comic book reads lined up right here. It looks, real dark and gothic, just so cool. How was I not even familiar with this? Yep, and there's #3. Amazing artwork. Normally I would hang on to something like this for a read around Halloween in the fall, but I don't think I'm going to be able to wait. I think I'm going to have to read this one now. And then, just so I can finish out the story, issue #4 in a 4-issue limited series. How epic is that? Cannot wait to dig into those. So we're starting to wind down in this box that was just packed full of amazing vintage and retro goodies. We've got a few items left though here, so let's see. All right, we've got a puzzle here. I can tell that it's a puzzle, I can feel it. I don't know what's on the front, so we're gonna find out right now. All right, we've got Rescue Rangers. Late 80s, early 90s, Disney afternoon cartoon. I've talked about it a lot on the channel. I loved the back-to-back of DuckTales and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. I've got great memories of both of these cartoons. You know, coming in the door after school, having a snack, sitting down and turning it on, and just those iconic theme songs. You know, the Disney afternoon, I did a whole video on it. Just great memories of that one. And that's really cool. And I'll find some way to hang this and display it. Artwork is awesome. All right, let's see, what do we have next? Looks like we might have some comic book advertisements here from my favorite TV family, or one of them, The Simpsons. Oh, look at that. It's an ad for Krusty's Funhouse on all the various systems. That is cool. I was always terrible at this game, but I liked playing it. It was definitely a frequent rental for us. It looks like there's some more stuff in here, so I'm going to put you down for a second and open this up and see what else we've got. Yep, just as I expected, there are several in here. So we've seen this one, but check out some of these others we've got here. I've got this classic ad for the original TMNT Nintendo game. Looks like we've got, let's see, is there something, maybe these are just comic pages. They had maybe there's some ads on the back, maybe they just got lumped in. Either way, I like the artwork on them. I've shown you guys this one before in some of my comics, the Rockin' Wrestling and Wuzzles and Berenstain Bears Saturday morning cartoon ad. Starts Saturday, September 14th on CBS. I need to figure out something to do with these ads because they're just so iconic and eye-catching. They're not easy to frame because I've got lots of comic books that I would like to frame and hang on the wall. Oh, that one's awesome. Nintendo's cereal system, and look how vivid and vibrant the colors still are on that. That is awesome. But yeah, I want to figure out a way to frame some of this stuff without, you know, cutting off the artwork. I know you could get custom framing done, and you could probably order comic book sized frames on Amazon or something I could check into. Wow, TMNT cereal. That is just so cool. Good color on that too, with the brick background. And these are all on, like, you know, comic book newspaper print style paper. And if I don't have room to frame all of these and put them on the wall in the garage, another thing I might consider doing is putting together a binder. You know, getting some protective plastic sheets for all of these, and putting them in a binder that I can flip through. That might be kind of cool too. Let's see, looks like we got another one here. Yeah, we got the Bonkers ad. I've seen this one a lot. I remember the TV commercials for Bonkers, of course, but I also have, you know, really clear memories of encountering the ads when reading comic books. So yeah, just awesome. And I'm going to figure out, like I said, a plan for what to do with all these, because I've got a pretty good collection of these going now. Thanks to Joe. Let's see, what do we have here? Looks like we've got some Puffy stickers for Rugrats. I always like Puffy stickers. You know, is that something they still do? I don't even know. And I liked Rugrats. I remember when Nicktoons first debuted, and I sat down that morning and watched Doug and Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy. Great memories of that from Nickelodeon. All right, what do we have here? Is this a placemat? I think it is. I think it's a Looney Tunes placemat, and I may have talked to Joe about this one previously. That's just so cool. You know, bring back the days of a fun character-based placemat on your table while you eat breakfast as a kid. You know, we had Sesame Street ones that I remember very clearly, and they had, you know, a picture on the front, and then on the back they had like little activities, like mazes and word finds and things like that. Just, you know, another cool relic from a bygone era. Looks like we have another one here. Yep. I'm gonna put these out on the breakfast table at both of my kids' spots tomorrow morning, and you know, get their breakfast ready on and set them there and see what they do. That old Pepsi logo. Just awesome. Yeah, and these are like laminated, you know, so they're okay for food and drinks that spill inevitably. All right, we're coming down to the end of the box here. There was already way more in here than I was expecting. All right, what do we have here? Oh, this is cool. So this is a Marvin the Martian candle from Six Flags. Another item from the 90s Looney Tunes craze. And I wonder which Six Flags this is from, because we have a Six Flags here in the Dallas area. It's over in Arlington. And I remember going to that Six Flags in the 90s and seeing all kinds of Looney Tunes memorabilia. This is going to look really cool on a shelf, because you got vintage Looney Tunes and you got vintage Six Flags. So the double whammy there on the nostalgia. A couple things here. Let's see. Oops. So we've got an ET trading card. The Friends Depart. I love the little protective cover on this too. And then we've got Gertie Says Hi. How cool is that? I just love that movie so much, and any piece of merchandise or memorabilia that I can find, I grab it up 9 times out of 10, and this is really cool. And this looks like a retro Super Mario Brothers little pinball game. You know, the games you can get with the little BBs in them. This might have been a Happy Meal toy or something recently, but I just always love seeing that artwork from the original Super Mario Brothers game. Just cool stuff. All right, and we are at the end. We've got one item left, and I can tell this is a glass. Joe had mentioned there was a glass in here, so let me put you guys down for just a minute and unwrap that, and we will find out what it is. Okay, so the last item in this way too generous package, truly, just overly generous here. We've got a Looney Tunes glass. And I kind of remember these. I know that I've seen them in antique stores. This one says, Thufferin Thuckatash. You know, and I feel like commemorative glasses are another thing that's just a relic of the past, of a simpler time. You know, anything and everything that came out in the world of pop culture seemed to have some kind of commemorative glassware tie-in that you could get. And this one's just really cool. So thanks again, Joe. Really, really awesome haul. Box full of amazing stuff. I'm going to start packing some of this stuff up and moving it to the side, and I will show you guys. I have a few just pickups from the past couple of months. You know, estate sales, thrift stores, you know, whatever I can find on Facebook Marketplace that I want to show you. So we'll move on to that next. Okay, so let's go through some of my recent vintage and retro pickup items that I've acquired over the past couple of months. And it's kind of a random assortment of things here, but the thing about doing pickups in your videos is you have to try to remember or go back and figure out what you've already talked about or what you've already shown to your audience, I guess. So apologies in advance if there's any repeats here, anything that I've already shown you or I've already talked about. But let's start with a couple of DVDs, and this first one's actually a Blu-ray, and it's for a movie that I love, The Legend of Billie Jean. And I just thought that cover was really cool. It's a Blu-ray, of course, but it's got like a VHS tape design. And this is a great movie for coming into the warm weather, the summer months. Fair is fair. I love that. Yeah, just really good design on this packaging. I think they did a whole series of these types of Blu-rays. Helen Slater, of course, you know, Supergirl herself. And just, like I said, a great summer 80s movie that I didn't actually have in any format. I'd only seen it on streaming, so happy to have that now. Next up, we've got Thrashin'. Now, this is a movie that I had actually never seen. I caught it recently on streaming. I think it was on Amazon Prime. I think that's where I watched it. And this was fantastic. You know, if you like the movie Rad, that's like the BMX bike equivalent of Thrashin' when it comes to skateboards. And a story about skateboarding in the 80s and just how rad it actually was. Another good cast, good characters, great music in this, great 80s scenery. This is a really fun movie. If you haven't seen it, or if it's been a while, or if you've never seen it, highly recommend the silly fun, skateboarding fun of Thrashin'. Check it out. And then the last DVD for today, I picked up a season of I Dream of Jeannie. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I'm always going to love 80s sitcoms. You know, I'm always going to, and 90s too. I'm always going to watch Growing Pains and Who's the Boss and Family Ties and you know, the TGIF stuff of the 90s with the Full House and the Step by Step and the Perfect Strangers and all those types of things. But just in the past couple of years, I've been really nostalgic for some of the older shows because I did watch these as a kid. You know, they'd be on Nick at Night, or they'd be on just some cable channel during the day. And so I watched a lot of things like The Brady Bunch and I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and My Three Sons and Lassie and Dennis the Menace and all those types of things. Leave It to Beaver. And so these are fun to watch. You know, they predate me. You know, they're from an era that I wasn't around for. But these types of shows were a big deal for us as kids in the 80s. They were just always on, and a lot of times we didn't have a lot of choice, so we gave it a chance and ended up discovering fun little shows. Okay, let's take a look at a few toys. And this first one is just so nostalgic for me. I have a loose one already that I've had for years, and I often say that this is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, McDonald's Happy Meal toy that I can ever remember owning. It's either this or the orange Stomper monster truck. I can't exactly place which one fell in which spot on the timeline, I guess, but I didn't remember that the Fast Max came on card until I saw a post on Instagram a little while back that reminded me of that. And then I came across this one for Birdie, the early bird. And this little pink car, like I said, if it's not the first Happy Meal toy that I ever had, it's the second. And how cool that, you know, in your Happy Meal box, the toy wasn't just in a little baggie, it was actually on card, like this. $19.85, just awesome stuff there. And I won't open this one. This one's staying in package. Pull them back and watch them go. Watch them go crazy. I think I have all 4. I might not have that Hamburglar, but I definitely have these other 3. Yeah, just such a blast from the past. Other toys, and you guys know that although I'm not displaying toys as much as I used to, that doesn't mean that I'm not still tracking them down and grabbing them from time to time, because they're always going to be a different kind of nostalgic, you know. Bear with me here because I'm gathering a few different ones. So yeah, they may not be on display, but they're still around, and I can still grab them and you know, pick them up and feel them and play with them, and you know, whenever I want to. So I recently came across some vintage Kenner Star Wars figures, and I already had a few of these that I'd kept in the collection, but this little batch has some really good ones. You've got a Walrus Man, and these are all incomplete without weapons, which I'm fine with, but they're in good shape otherwise. You've got a Gamorrean Guard. Now I just need to find a couple more, because don't they always kind of travel in groups? This is one of my favorite action figures from the whole line, the AT-AT driver, or the AT-AT driver. This is the, you know, one of the guys that drove the big Imperial walkers in Empire Strikes Back. Just love the look of that figure. And these are basic. I've always thought they were a little bit more sturdy than some of like the O-ring figures of this same size, like the G.I. Joes and stuff. Just cool. They've held up well over time. Not much to them, like I said. Here you've got Bosk, one of the bounty hunters. I always thought that was a cool figure for a character that's actually not in the movies all that much. And then one of my favorites, we've got the Wampa. Now, I never had this one as a kid, but I had friends that had this guy, and I always thought that was one of the coolest monsters from the movies, and just a cool action figure. Just, you know, menacing looking. I may have to do a video on memories of Star Wars one day, because I do have lots of good memories linked to that franchise of movies. So I had to stand up for this next one because it's a little bit of a larger item. This was a Facebook Marketplace find, and I bought it honestly just for the look, just for the aesthetic, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with it, because it does function, it works for the most part, but like I said, I couldn't pass it up just because it looks so cool, and that is this Sony boombox. Yeah, and the guy told me, he's like, the radio works just fine and sounds great, and the tape player works, but the door won't stay closed, and that's why I've got that little duct tape holding it shut. I'm like, that's okay. I've got other ways to play tapes. I really just wanted it for the look and the feel, because it's just so 80s. And what I'm going to do with it, like I've done with some of the other boom boxes that I have, I like to put a Bluetooth speaker, and more about that in a minute. I like to hide a Bluetooth speaker behind these guys and just, you know, play my old music, and just, you know, let my mind be tricked into thinking that I'm blasting these jams out of an old boombox. So, like I said, I'm going to talk about that more in just a minute, but I definitely had to show you the new Sony here, my new old Sony boombox. Now, I have a Bluetooth speaker that I've had for several years, probably 5-6 years at this point. It's a JBL Charge 3, I think is what it is, and it still sounds great, but it's starting to, it won't hold a charge anymore. In fact, it hasn't for quite some time, so anytime I want to listen to it, I have to plug it in, and that kind of defeats the purpose of some of the mobility of a speaker like that. So my work will do these, they call them applause points. Like if you get recognized for something, you know, if somebody sends in some kind of complimentary email, or you did a good job on a project or whatever, they'll offer you these applause points, and they can be used in a company store. And usually the stuff in the store is not that great. You know, every once in a while you'll find something good, but it's usually like laptop bags or, you know, various electronics, you know, headphones and things like that. But what I usually use those applause points for are gift cards, because they've got a whole section of gift cards, which is awesome. But for this last go round, I was like, hey, let's go ahead and replace my Bluetooth speaker. I still want the JBL, I still want the JBL Charge. I don't need to have the most current one. So let's go back and see what last year's model looked like. And I was able to get one. And not a retro or vintage item, but I wanted to show it to you guys because I love the color of it. You know, this bright teal, and I don't know how well that's going to come over on camera, but it is like a bright, vibrant teal. And yeah, I've been using it outside. You know, it's weatherproof or weather resistant, I guess. Sounds great. You know, it's going to hold a charge for, I think they said up to 20 hours, which is awesome. And like, yeah, I'm going to tuck it right behind that Sony boombox that I just showed you. In fact, I've actually done it a couple times. This past weekend when I was outside on the back patio grilling, I was listening to a baseball game. And it looked just like and sounded just like it was coming out of that old boombox. And I was also listening to some Van Halen and some Motley Crue, and you know, same thing there. But yeah, I wanted to show it to you. I know it's not retro, but this color feels retro to me. You guys know that my main aesthetic is, you know, 70s and late 70s, early 80s. Orange and brown and yellow and olive green. That's like my first color aesthetic that I'm drawn to. But the next one is probably like the late 80s, early 90s teal and pink and purple and those types of colors. And this fits in perfectly with that vibe. See what I mean? It blends right in with this old vintage 90s bed sheet that I've got here. Just a really cool speaker. Really glad to have this. You know, good use of the company store for once. So there it is. All right, winding down here, guys, but I've got a couple more things to show you really quickly here. A couple of children's books that I found at a half-price books a little while back, and I showed you I took a couple pictures of the artwork inside each of these and turned them into desktop wallpapers for my computer. And I showed you some of that in a Hangout video previously, but I wanted to feature the books here because these are some of my earliest memories of sitting down and reading as a kid. You know, if it's your parents reading to you or sitting down with your Fisher-Price tape recorder and trying to figure it out how to read on your own, whatever the case was, I just have fond memories of these old Smurfs books. And here we've got a Smurf in the air and the fake Smurf. And these are just basic little, you know, little storybooks. But it's amazing how when you see an image that you haven't seen in 40 years, how instantly recognizable it can be. It looks like they had a few different mini storybooks, but I've got two of them here, blue and green. Just great, you know, memories from a very simple time with sitting down and reading children's books back in the early to mid 80s. Love it. And last but not least, I've got a couple of Nintendo Switch games here, which I know that's a modern console, but as you know, I use the Switch mostly for retro gaming. You know, I don't use it for a whole lot of modern games for the most part. Now these are kind of an exception. I got two games here that I picked up recently. They are modern games, but they are, from everything that I've seen and read, they feel like throwbacks to the 16-bit era of RPGs and adventure-style games from back on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis. So, but with the modern, you know, a modern twist on it. So I'm excited to try both of these. The first one, we've got Sea of Stars, which the gameplay that I saw online, and keep in mind, guys, I'm way behind the curve on video games. I know these have been out for a while, but I'm just now getting to them and hearing about them. But everything that I've seen, and if I can remember, I'll put some gameplay footage in here. It just looks like an awesome, like pixelated adventure game with good music and really cool graphics. So I'm excited to try that out. And then on a similar note, I've got Octopath Traveler. And I know they've already got a sequel for this one that's probably been out for a while too, a couple of years, I think. But this is supposedly for fans of things like, you know, I called them Final Fantasy II and Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo. I know that might not be accurate. I think they came out, you know, in Japan with different numbers. I don't know all that. All I know is that my cartridge said Final Fantasy III, and it was one of my favorite games that I ever played. So looking for some similar vibes from these types of games. And like I said, I've heard nothing but good things. If they are really great and feel retro, I might bring you all along on some of that and see, you know, maybe give it a little bit of a review or maybe share some gameplay footage. We'll have to see. But yeah, really excited. And that wraps it up for today's pickups. And there we are. So I know today's video wasn't anything fancy or extravagant, but I hope you all enjoyed our little hangout today here in the den. And if you did, consider subscribing. And also, be sure to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.